Our next speaker is here to talk about the impact of cell phones on school safety, which is an issue that comes up quite a bit when we talk about the idea or the concept of restrictions on cell phones in our schools. One of the most common questions I get is, but how will I reach my child in an emergency? And as a parent, I can relate to that concern, especially as a parent who regularly sees in the news tragedies like we just saw only a few short weeks ago in Georgia. And so I thought it was really important today that we hear from some experts in law enforcement. And we are really excited today to bring to the stage for some expert advice Albany County's own Sheriff Craig Apple.
So good afternoon. First of all, thanks for inviting me out, but those of you who have ever spoken at conferences, what's the worst spot to be in to speak? Post-lunch, so I appreciate it. So feel free to get up, go to the bathroom, walk it off, just don't fall asleep, all right? I'm only here for like 5 minutes. But no, again, thanks for the invite. And so listen, this is a topic that sometimes is conflicting for law enforcement. Although I'm a proponent of get disconnected, lock it up, get it out of sight. There's enough technology out there that in the event of emergencies, we'll be able to communicate. Parents will still be able to get in touch with their child. But what happens a lot of times is that when you have something horrific that occurs, or maybe not even so much a horrific, but alarming, one of the biggest issues with having the cell phones in the classroom, the kids are all hitting 911. And then what happens is we bog down the 911 system. Now, that's kind of, I shouldn't really say bog it down, because what will happen is you may inundate our 911 system, and then those calls that are continuing to come in, you're still going to get a human, but it's not going to be a human in Albany. You may get a human in Schenectady, Rensselaer, wherever, and it'll keep going as those lines fill up. It just keeps going west, east, north, south, whichever. So that's one of the biggest problems that we run into when you have the phones in the schools and in the classrooms. One of the other issues, though, that is concerning for us is just that social disconnect. Kids are always on the phone. They're not listening to the teachers. They're not listening to friends. There's no situational awareness. And since there's such an emphasis on today's day in schools with a lot of the horrific things that are going on, whether it be swatting, whether it be bullying, whatever may be occurring, they're not paying attention and they're not being aware of what's going on around them. And that's one of the things that sometimes, when I'm walking around the city, and I usually do that daily, I'll just pay attention to who's got earbuds in and who's on their phone and they're walking. They're not paying attention to cars. They're not paying attention to potential robbers or thieves on the corner looking to grab your purse or your wallet or whatever the case may be. And that's what I see all over the country, not just here. Everybody is on the phone. Their face is buried in. And there's a disconnect there. There's a situational awareness issue that I'm very concerned about. Where I say I get conflicted is the fact that in Albany County, and I know you guys are from all over the state, but I can only speak about here, we have video texting to 911. So if something does occur, you can stream that video right to 911 and feed it back to first responders. But I think we also have enough technology where we can rely on others as opposed to 1,000 school kids doing it. And that's where sometimes we get conflicted because we buy this technology and we use this technology, then we go out and push it. One of the issues that we started to see in Albany County, people they felt there were too many voids in their school. They couldn't contact 911, whatever the case may be. So what we started to do in the schools that we police and have SROs and those in our primary jurisdiction, we started to add panic buttons. And when that panic button is hit, it opens up two-way communication. And it was a very inexpensive fix, very inexpensive fix. And what it does, it goes straight to our 911 system. Anything, if you can't talk, we can hear. We hear everything that's going on, whether it's a bad guy coming down the hall, whether it's somebody making threats, whatever the case may be, we can hear it. If you can talk, you can whisper into it, and we don't have to respond to you so they can hear somebody else talking. It doesn't happen that way. So there's a lot of technology out there that we can utilize to make up for the cell phone. But between the bullying and the situational awareness and just the social disconnect, that leads us to support not having the phones. And I don't think it's a big ask. I was looking at these folders here, and I was telling Pete, we had to do this very similar project in our correctional facility. And I had to ban my employees from using cell phones inside the county jail. And I think a lot of county jails have done that, whether it's a matter of videoing, whether it's just a film or you're live streaming, whatever the case may be, or sometimes officers would let inmates use phones for illicit purposes, things of that nature. So we had to ban the phones. Plus, the officer would be sitting at his desk on the phone watching a video, and we're missing what's going on behind you with the 50 prisoners. So we had to do this, and it hurts a little bit. I may have been called a few very bad things. But now it's kind of second nature. But my emphasis would be, if this happens, and it seems like it's going to happen since over 3/4 or probably 85-90% of the schools are doing this, you need to enforce it. You can have all the rules and all the laws, but if you're not enforcing them, there's no sense in having it. In our agency, we have a zero tolerance. You get caught with that phone, you're suspended immediately. You get caught twice, you're terminated, period. And we've had to do that. Now, you're going to run into exigent circumstances. There may be a child that has a medical issue. Maybe their parents are having a medical issue, whatever. And you have that flexibility as long as it's not abused. But my biggest issue would be when this is done, the schools need to step up and enforce it. And it's tough at first, but it does get easier. And again, I know there's going to be parents, I need to get in touch with my child and everything else. There's a lot of technology out there to do this and to make this happen. But the biggest thing would be for first responders responding to an emergency at that school, we need to be able to communicate as well. And if you can do it however you want. You can have a 911 phone in the front of the classroom, a 911 phone in the back of the classroom, however you choose to do it. I know there's some schools are ginormous, some schools are very small. We have both sets of those examples in our county right now, and we do have to do things a little differently in a very big school as opposed to the very small school. But at the end of the day, the rules and the regulations need to be the same. And we see what happens with the swatting calls. We see I don't want to call them out, and you're probably here, but we've seen what happened locally right here in the county over the last week and a half at 2 different school districts, actually 3 different school districts. And at the end of the day, it was a younger person making that call. So, and then all the other kids can see it and monitor it and everything else. So we're a proponent of lock it up. It's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. I am concerned, though, how do you get this out if you forget to unlock it in school? So I pray for the day when I can lock my phone up and not have to answer it, sooner or later. But that's it. I'm short and sweet tonight, folks. Thanks for the invitation. But again, there's some serious issues that we support locking this phone up. I think at the end of the day, it's going to make our schools safer. It's going to make some of our children safer. It's going to make our children less vulnerable to some of the bullying that goes on in our schools. And so I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. Everybody get home safe.